In 1993, hip-hop's golden era had pretty much dissolved in New York as the West Coast rap movement had blown up. Hip-hop listeners became less interested in battle rhymes and conscious lyrics to make way for a new wave of edgier gangster rap. It seemed that if New York was to regain its crown as the headliner of hip-hop, it had to come much harder. During the late 1980s, a rapper out of Brooklyn who went by the name of Prince Rakeem had formed a hip-hop group with his two cousins, Gary Grice, known as The Genius, and Russell Jones, known as The Specialist. The group was called Force of the Imperial Master, or the All In Together Now crew. They had sparked some attention in the underground hip-hop scene, which landed The Genius a deal through Cold Crush Records, and Prince Rakeem with Tommy Boy Records. Neither of the two managed to gain much buzz and were both dropped from their labels. Despite their failure at solo careers, they forged on. Rakeem changed his name to the RZA and would relocate to Staten Island, where he would collaborate with another rapper known as Ghostface Killah. The two rappers had shared an admiration for martial arts films, comic books, and the 5% Nation's numerical philosophies. It was with these fundamentals that inspired the RZA to form an original hip-hop group of street-hardened, lyrical assassins who would sound like nothing the music industry had ever heard. This group would be known as the Wu-Tang Clan. The Wu-Tang Clan consisted of 9 members, 2 of which were RZA's cousins from his previous group, but had changed their stage names to GZA the Genius and the Old Dirty Bastard, or ODB for short. Aside from them, there was also Raekwon the Chef, Ghostface Killah, Inspector Deck, U-God, Massa Killa, Method Man, and RZA, who was the group's producer and de facto leader. The idea of naming the group Wu-Tang was based on the kung fu films that they grew up watching.
Master Lord, a game of chess is like a sword fight. You must think first, before you move.
In particular, the 1983 film Shaolin and the Wu-Tang, which was about the rivalry between 2 separate martial arts schools. The group also brought about the nickname for Staten Island, Shaolin, which was essentially their way of marking the borough as their territory in hip-hop. What RZA saw in these members was their ability to stand out as individuals so that the listeners could easily identify them on their own. For example, GZA covered bass for the Intellects, Ghostface and Raekwon were the more street-hardened members who shared an admiration for mafioso tales, and Method Man catered to the blunt-smoking, beer-drinking partiers, which became more predominant when he would later team up with his Cheech and Chong-type partner in crime, Redman, who was actually not affiliated with Wu-Tang. The group's sense of diversity has been compared to superhero groups like the Avengers or the Justice League, and in fact, RZA would constantly reference Wu-Tang in comparison to a 1980s anime cartoon about 5 galactic pilots that, when formed together to erect the giant robot Voltron, became unstoppable.
We have just received a report that New York City is under attack by swarms of killer bees.
As the group started to gain buzz in New York, they were approached by Loud Records, who offered to sign them as a group. They took the deal and went to work on their first album, Enter the 36 Chambers. The album's title was a reference to the 1978 kung fu film, The 36th Chamber of Shaolin. The group was not given much money to produce their first record, and in fact were so broke that they sometimes relied on theft to get by. In an interview with The Village Voice, RZA's younger brother, 9th Prince, claims that Ghostface would frequently shoplift canned goods from grocery stores to feed the other members during this time. Needless to say, this had worked in their benefit. The lack of resources gave the production a gritty and simplistic street sound, which was essentially what they were aiming for. Much of the album's tone can be attributed to RZA's innovative production style. In his self-written book, The Wu-Tang Manual, RZA noted that in order to get a rough and dirty sounding beat, all he had to do was lower the frequency sample rate on his keyboards, the Ensoniq EPS and the ASR-10. This would allow the sample length to be longer, but it would downgrade the music to a lo-fi quality. He said, "I thought it sounded more ghetto, and it let me use more sounds." His meticulous approach at the album's production was quite impressive for someone without any formal training in music. In one instance, he was said to have put a microphone underneath a paint can to attain a more hollowed-sounding snare drum. For the album's music, he took a less traditional approach at sampling records. He would speed up bluesy soul records, or would go completely left field and sample the unexpected. For example, on the track Wu-Tang Clan Ain't Nothing to F With, he sampled the theme to a children's cartoon, Underdog.
Tiger style. Yo. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to with.
On paper, this didn't exactly mesh with what the Wu-Tang song was about, but it worked. The album was full of dialogue and fighting clips that were sampled from some of their favorite kung fu films. This gave the album a much more cinematic feel. Complementing the production, the Clan stepped to the mic fueled with energy while showcasing the same themes of street life throughout the album. The debut single, Protect Your Neck, was essentially one big rap cypher that had 8 of the 9 members taking their turn on the mic. The track opens up with Inspector Deck's cutthroat verse. I smoke on the mic like Smokin' Joe Frazier, the Hellraiser, raising hell with the flavor. Terrorize the jam like troops in Pakistan, swinging through your town like your neighborhood Spider-Man. With lyrics like this, who was gonna stop these guys? This was essentially the Wu-Tang sound. Each member would sound completely different and come harder than the next, as if they were in the middle of a legit rap battle. Upon the album's release, RZA had approached the members with a 5-year plan. As the group's creator and sole leader, he promised each member that if the album was successful upon its release, that he would allow each member to join any label they got picked up by as a solo artist. RZA knew that this would allow Wu-Tang as a brand to grow, and it would allow the members to establish themselves individually so that the group's follow-up album would be even bigger. Released on November 9th, 1993, Enter the 36 Chambers blew up and shook the hip-hop world. The group's style and rugged sound was like nothing anyone had heard before. It debuted on the US Billboard chart at number 41 while selling 30,000 copies on its first week. The group had become critically acclaimed. Several record labels quickly approached individual members to sign with them, which RZA had honored his promise. Method Man, Raekwon, ODB, GZA, and Ghostface were all lined up to work on their solo albums. The group had also gained a 10th unofficial member, Capadonna, who would mainly work with Ghostface and Raekwon on their albums. As the members took on solo careers, they were being scattered out to feature on other artists' records and remixes, but they always managed to represent the Wu-Tang. This brilliant sense of marketing was pursued by RZA and essentially expanded the brand to grow even larger. One could even say they set out to
diversify your bonds, nigga.
It didn't take very long for Wu-Tang to gain worldwide fame. Their records had gone platinum. They were performing at sold-out concerts, they had a clothing line, video games, comic books, and had some members diving into their own acting careers on television and in film. With the logo as iconic as the Mickey Mouse ears, it's not surprising that Wu-Tang didn't just make an impact within the hip-hop industry, they had become an empire.
Check. Mate.
Weren't you just using the Wu-Tang school method against me?
This did not come without any controversy. As the hip-hop industry grew, there were disputes among the community as to who deserved the utmost recognition. At the 1998 Grammy ceremonies, during an acceptance speech for the Song of the Year award, Old Dirty Bastard had bum-rushed the stage and told the crowd that Wu-Tang was for the children, implying that Wu-Tang deserved to win the award for the best hip-hop album over their loss to Puff Daddy, who had won that award. Sorry, Kanye, but you were not the first to pull this stunt. ODB's antics were shocking to the world, but the hip-hop community loved it. He was always known for his honesty and charisma in interviews, which was mostly attributed in part to his addiction to drugs and alcohol. Sadly, ODB passed away in 2004 due to a drug overdose. It has now been 25 years since Enter the 36 Chambers was released, and its success still resonates with listeners young and old to this day. And that's not only in the hip-hop community. They broke barriers and managed to reach new plateaus by gaining a cult following within other genres of music too, that has left a significantly sized Timberland boot print in pop culture. I mean, you can't even walk into an H&M or Hot Topic without noticing t-shirts with the yellow Wu-Tang emblem on it. As their influence cast shadow for generations of hip-hop to come, none have been able to fully emulate as deep of a brotherhood that they have maintained to this day. The fact that they still manage to release group albums and perform together at shows as they near into their 50s just goes to show how honest they were when they said 20 years ago that Wu-Tang is forever. And as intoxicated as he was at the 1998 Grammy ceremony, ODB somehow knew that Wu-Tang was for the children.